morning. We're talking about the Millennium Tower, which for reasons good and bad has become one of the biggest tourist attractions in San Francisco. And joining me is Tom Miller, who literally wrote the book on handling construction defect claims. He's represented developers and homeowners associations alike. And now you are representing the Millennium Homeowners Association, a group of some more than 400 tenants or condo owners who find their buildings sinking. How did we get to this? Tell me, what happened there?
So we got to that because when this project was originally designed and constructed,
58 stories of exclusive downtown San Francisco living.
58 stories of concrete and steel was not designed in a way that the foundation went into bedrock. It went into Old Bay clay and sand below the building, and it should have at that point gone into bedrock. It was considered to go into bedrock at the time, but it was dismissed. And so we decided to move into a different frame at that point.
All right, so what we have is a huge frame that most people now agree should have gone down to bedrock and didn't. Is this common in San Francisco? It seemed like this is sort of a logical thing to go to bedrock.
I think as a result of this case, everybody is looking at the bedrock option now. So anybody that's building any kind of stories, and this is a 58-story project, is looking at that, and so is the city, being very close to discerning why and preventing this kind of failure from happening in other buildings.
Okay, so are there other buildings like this in downtown San Francisco?
There are other buildings like this. The Salesforce Tower across the street is bigger than this building, heavier than this building. But it was designed, and it did go into bedrock.
All right, so we have this grand opening of this new, come on down, be hip, live in downtown San Francisco, and it's sinking. Now, it's hard to believe that it's actually sinking when you look at it. It's sinking and tilting. Why aren't the pipes cracking? Why aren't the elevators off cue? What's going on?
Well, we're seeing different modifications of that building structure, and we're closely observing that with our experts to make sure that mechanical, plumbing systems, window systems, and every other major system in that building is performing to standard. And there are initial signs of failures, and we're addressing those as we go.
How does the window play into that? We don't know if that's part of this or not, right? The window cracked.
That's correct. We don't know yet. We're doing additional investigation of that window early next week, but that's a symptom of something that's going on with that building, whether it's related to the manufacturing of that building, the window itself, the window assembly, installation.
What about the tenants, the owners themselves? I mean, you meet with them and talk with them. What's the feeling there? Their property values have dropped, or what's the situation?
They are very, very concerned. High anxiety would be a good way to describe it. And they're very concerned because everybody puts their money into this, the most important investment of their lives. So they are looking at this thing and they're watching their property values drop. The good news is we have a solution in play, and we're putting that solution forward, as is the developer putting their solution forward.
We're going to hold you right there at that. Tom Miller of the Miller Law Firm, who's representing the Homeowners Association of the Millennium Tower. When we come back, we're going to talk about the possible solution and, of course, the legal barriers that seem to keep it from happening right now. Good morning and welcome back. We're with Tom Miller, who's the lawyer representing the Millennium Homeowners Association, probably one of the most growing and famous groups in San Francisco right now. The owners of the condominiums and apartments in the Tilting Tower.
It's a pleasure to represent this association, given the fact that they've got a grave issue to resolve.
It's interesting. Now, what we have is a building that's sinking and tilting, and there is a possible solution there. The idea is to send pilings down into bedrock to stabilize this building, or stabilize part of it and actually have it continue tilting and straighten up on its own. It seems like something out of either a comedy or a sci-fi movie.
Well, you could look at it either way, but the point is that both sides of this dispute have solutions in place, and each one of those solutions involve going into bedrock. Our solution is a little more robust because it has 132 piles into bedrock. Their solution is 50 piles into bedrock. But as you can see, both sides agree that something has to be done, and that solution has to involve bedrock.
And involves money. How much money are we talking about?
A significant amount of money. The defense says in an article that was published last week that it's an $80 million fix. Ours is going to be more than that, of course, because we're putting more piles through the mat slab into bedrock itself.
Okay. And if that tower came down and you had to take it down, what's that cost?
Oh, it would be priceless. Let's put it that way. You couldn't afford to do that. I mean,
Okay.
the idea is that you can stabilize that, and that's the objective.
So right now we're trying to come up with an agreement. How many lawyers are involved in this?
We've got over 150 lawyers and over 50 law firms involved in this lawsuit.
How many lawsuits have been filed so far over this?
9.
9. And it involves property owners adjacent. It even involves the San Francisco and the Trans Bay Center, because there's allegations that they sucked water out of the area, which destabilized it. And meanwhile, we have all this and trying to work out a solution, but the tower is continuing to sink, or is it?
It is. So it's sunk 18 inches and it's tilting 14 inches. And even the latest statistics, because we keep weekly statistics of movement, it's still continuing to sink and tilt.
How long do you have before it's sunk too much and you can't fix it?
We don't know, but we know we're on a very tight timeline. And everybody that's involved in this case, including the mediation team that's assigned to this case, is looking forward to the solution, getting the solution in place, costing it out, and of course, primarily finding the funds to get it fixed.
Now, so far, the city has said everything's continued to be safe, right?
Correct.
All right. Is it seismically safe? They say.
Well, if there's a seismic, it depends on earthquake. It depends on the size and the scale of that earthquake.
Okay, the latest thing is the cracked window, which got everybody's attention. Now we have scaffolding all around the building. That's going to stay in place while you try to figure out what caused the crack. But getting to the crack means you 36 floors up, even getting to it is a problem because the machinery that you usually use to clean windows and drop down is broken.
Correct. A part's been ordered, but we're going to proceed with a further investigation early this coming week to pull the area around the window from the inside of 3 different units. The unit on the 36th floor, the unit above it, and the unit below it, and see how that window was installed, see how the connections are, the structural connections to that window and the window frame, and determine that way whether there's a cause that we can discern. And whether
Is there any other building or case that has happened before that's in any way similar to this?
No. This is unique, and this is compelling. So that we have no evidence of any other cases like this across the United States.
Well, welcome to San Francisco, because that is why tourists walking down Mission are often stopped and pointed and looking up, because Pisa has its leaning tower, and we do too. I want to thank you for joining us, Tom Miller.
You're welcome.
All right.